I'm going to show you how to make a chair backpack out of a pillowcase. This is what it will look like when it's done. Before you start, you want to go ahead and measure the width of your actual chair at the widest part. So let's say this chair is 12 inches. When I make my chair backpack, I'm going to add 2 inches, which I'll remind you of later, but just to know that the first thing you want to do is find out how wide your chair is. The next thing, well, it doesn't really matter which order, but I'm using pillowcases. These pillowcases I got at Walmart, and there's actually 2 in this set. There's the standard pillowcases, and when you open it up, here's what they look like. I used to use material and measure everything out and make my own chair backpacks from scratch, completely from scratch, and that just is really a hassle. But this is a really nice way of doing it. These are about $5.74 for the pack of 2, so basically you're talking like $3 per chair backpack. You can get some that are already made at the teacher stores, and those run like I think $7 or $8 the last time I checked. And they're really nice too, but these are just kind of give your classroom a personal touch, especially if you add or have a more decorative pattern to it. So I like these. The thing you're going to want to do after you've got your material and you're ready to go with your pillowcase is you want to go ahead and iron this out before you get started. So we're going to go iron. I laid my pillowcase out, and I'm just going to go ahead and iron out all of the creases so that I have a smooth piece of material to work with. You don't need to watch me ironing it all, of course. You know how to iron, so go ahead and iron your whole pillowcase, and then after it's completely ironed, we're ready to move on to the next step. I've finished ironing it, all the creases are out, and what I want to do is I want to go ahead and turn it inside out and then lay it flat, and I'll be ready to measure it. I mean, I guess you could have turned it inside out and then ironed it. It doesn't really matter at what point, but since I'm right here, ready to go. Okay, and then you want to make sure that you get it really flat. Make sure all the creases again are out of it. That was the whole purpose of ironing it. And then you're going to measure. Now my chair was 12 inches wide, so I definitely want to go with 14 inches. I'm adding that 2 inches to it. If yours is a wider chair, then you would want to take your measurement, the width of the chair, and then add 2 inches to whatever that is. Okay, so I'm going with 14 inches, and what I'm using is just my handy dandy eyeliner. It's probably chalk or something else that you could use, but this is just handy, so I'm going to use that. And I'm going to go ahead and mark my 14 off in a couple different spots so I can pretty much get it straight, because I can't cut a straight line on my own. So I'll just go those 3 marks right there, and now I'm going to move those to the side, and I'm ready to start cutting. Alright, so I'm going to start my scissors right here on those 14 inches where I've measured it off. And you can see this is really a pretty quick project. Before I'd have to take a big piece of material, cut it down to the size that I needed, and just a lot of cutting and measuring and then sewing these edges. But all these edges are already sewed up, so really all I'm going to do is close it up now. So we're going to go to the next step, which is sewing it down. I'm going to go ahead and sew along the edges that have been cut, which is this side right here, and then I'm going to sew the bottom closed also, leaving about 2 inches at the end so that I can turn it back inside out, right side in, I don't know, whatever you call that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start here. You can see, I mean, I only pull my sewing machine out basically for this. I don't sew anymore, so it doesn't take any fancy type of setup at all. And I'll just go ahead and sew, making sure that you keep the sides together, because it is a little, I mean, you could pin it if you really wanted to. Second to adjust that here so that I'm getting that together. Okay, and then I'm just going to turn it. You can see it didn't match evenly. That's fine. Not really going to worry about that. I'm going to turn it, and like I said, I'm going to leave like a little, maybe like 2 inches at the end there. back it up a little bit so that kind of seals it. And then I'm done sewing it. It's that fast. And then I'm just going to use, you could leave this open a little bit more if you wanted to. I just like it kind of closed up, which then I get mad because I fight myself to turn it back inside, right side in, outside, whatever that's called. And you're just pulling the inside so that you can get that sewed part to stay without being shown. Takes a minute to get it started, but then once you've got it going, you're fine. And then you want to go ahead and iron it again so that you got everything creased down and back in order before you start folding it up. Okay, so make sure you pull all the ends back out, all your corner ends that are still tucked in. Make sure you get all those pieces so that it will come out. And just give it a shake, and you're ready to iron again. Went ahead and laid this out on the ironing board, and I'm ironing it all flat again. And making sure that I get the edges of this is really the reason I'm putting it back on the ironing board. And the other thing is, where I didn't close up those 2 inches, I want to make sure that I'm tucking it in underneath there and closing that up with the iron as well. Okay. It'll kind of get closed up when I'm sewing, so I'm not really worried about that part being open. If it really bugs you, you can just hand sew that. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and start pinning it. I'm going to make the bottom pocket, and the way I make the bottom pocket is I'm going to go ahead and fold that up 9 inches. So I've got my measuring tape here, and it doesn't have to be exact, but 9 inches, that's about right. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and pin those. And just put a couple pins in there. And on the other side as well. Then that's going to be the front pocket. That's going to be your main pocket. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and turn it over. And then this will be the top pocket that actually slips over the top of the chair. And this one's going to be 6 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and measure that. Okay, close enough. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin all this together. If you want, you can take out one of the bottom pins because you kind of hit all those pins together anyways. Just kind of, and if it doesn't line up perfectly, just squeeze it back a little bit, move the material back a little bit so that it all lines up. If not, you'll have pieces of your material hanging over. So like this piece right here, I could actually take out this pin because it's grabbed the bottom part. And then one more on the top. And then this next part is kind of your choice. Can you see with the ironing board being in the iron being in there? Okay, so this next part, I like to make the top, some people just would sew this down and that's perfectly fine, but I like to make the top a little, I don't know, fancier I guess. So I take this piece of material and I push it in on the corner, and so it's kind of got that curved shape to it. I'll let you see the difference between the two. So here's this kind of curved end, or I don't know what, versus this squared end. But I like them with this little piece tucked in. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck in this part over here as well. And you don't really need to make sure it's that perfectly. Just tuck it in and eyeball it and see if they're close to the same look. Okay. And pretty much done other than now sewing it together. So I'm going to go ahead and take it back to the sewing machine and I'm just going to close up those two sides and we'll be done. Now we're going to go ahead and sew the edges. This one's got that little corner, so I'm going to start over this way, kind of turned, and taking the pins out, getting them out of my way as I go. And then turning it. You just want to make sure that you include all the little pieces because they're just kind of layered, so make sure you catch everything and sewing it together. So that side is done. Go ahead and clip that, take off the extra string, the extra pin, and just going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side, which is a little trickier because the pins are turned the opposite direction, but it's basically the same thing. Just going to go ahead and stick it in there. Move that pin out of my way. Again, you want to make sure that you're catching all of the different pieces because sometimes it will kind of get stuck underneath there. Finish trimming that part, those strings, get the rest of those pins out of there, and one more string up there. And there you have your chair backpack.